Hi, it's Paul, and I want to welcome you to Understanding Assessment Validity. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a quick tour of some of the issues involved in using online computerized assessments in the hiring process. And I want to introduce you to some of the issues that are involved in validity. We'll go real quick through this just to give you a quick introduction. There's no legal guidance here, but it will get you started in the right direction. First of all, we want to understand why validity is important. Well, if you've got an assessment, you're using a product that it doesn't give you valid results, you could actually end up with worse employees than what you've got now, because it could be leading you in the wrong direction. It could be pointing you towards people who really are worse than the ones you've got now if it's not valid. The second thing is it's not ethical, because you could dismiss somebody or not consider somebody fully because you're getting results from the assessment that indicate that maybe this isn't the best person for the job. And the third one is potential legal issues. And with today's litigious society and the rules and regulations, we have to be careful about this. Now, I'm going to point you in the right direction on this, but it's absolutely a factor that must be considered. So let me give you a perspective on using assessments in the hiring. Now, all parts of the hiring process are assessments. Everything from the interview to the resume to the background check, these are all ways of assessing whether somebody will fit into the job or not. So the word assessments generally is referring to tests and things that people take online, but really the entire hiring process is an assessment. Now, the ProfileXT and other online psychometric assessments are extensions of the interview process. Think of it as just asking some additional interview questions. In the case of the ProfileXT, it might be a significant number of additional questions, but these additional questions are designed to give you additional information for the hiring process, for the assessment process of deciding whether somebody would be right for a job or not. The same rules apply as would apply to an interview. With online assessments, you can't ask questions that aren't relevant to the job. I'll go into details with this in a minute. But we have to keep the proper perspective. First of all, an online psychometric assessment of any type should never be more than about a quarter or absolutely no more than a third of the hiring decision. You should still use your interview. You should still use resumes and applications. You still need to do the background check, and then you fill in additional data with the assessment. It gives you additional information that you can't get any other way if the assessment is valid and properly designed. Let me give you a little bit of legal background. Now, the Supreme Court actually ruled on this issue back in the 1970s. As civil rights took hold in the United States, people were using tests and assessments to discriminate against people. They would say, if you couldn't pass this test, you couldn't have the job. So the Supreme Court ruled that the test had to be related to the performance of the job, but otherwise it was perfectly legal. Now, in the 1990s, there was the Tower Amendment to the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which specifically allowed the use of testing in the hiring process. And in 2000, the EEOC published Testing and Assessment and Employer's Guide to Good Practices. And this is kind of the guideline, the golden rule of guidelines in effect today. In 2007, the EEOC held some additional hearings, but they didn't really change any of the guidelines. So let's get into it. I'm going to talk to you about what I call the four traps. The first one is discrimination, and of course this one's obvious. Anything in the hiring process that excludes candidates on the basis of race, color, sex, national origin, religion, disability, or age is dangerous. You don't do this in any other part of your hiring. You've got to make sure you don't do it if you're using an online assessment. In addition, the Americans with Disabilities Act can apply to online assessments because we have to make sure that somebody who has some type of a disability can use the same assessment tool and get the same results as somebody who doesn't. Now, the solution is to administer to a large group of people and analyze the results. Use established statistical standards, and the EEOC has put some guidelines out there about this. Now, the ProfileXT has been administered to over 200,000 people, and there's some very strong statistical information in this area. I'm not going to give it to you in this video. You can get it from me at another time, but suffice it to say that we have really strong statistical information in this area. And of course, you want to track your own history to make sure that for some reason it isn't creating discrimination in your particular business. The second thing is integrity. You have to be sure that the test measures what it claims to measure. For example, a test of mental ability has to in fact measure mental ability and not some other characteristic or no characteristic, or even worse, give you results that don't reflect that, and so you're hiring for the wrong reason. Number 3 is consistency. The test must measure what it claims to measure consistently and reliably. This means if a person were to take the test again, the person would get a similar test score. And for example, the SAT is really good at this. My daughter took this test a few years ago, and she got a score that she wasn't happy with. So we sent her to this intense training program. I think it lasted 13 weeks. And then she took the test again and got essentially the same scores. That's because the SAT has a lot of consistency. You can take it multiple times and get basically the same score over and over and over again. The next thing is relevance. The test must be job relevant, as does anything used in the hiring process. In other words, it must measure one or more characteristics that are important to the job. This is the same thing for any interview question. I can't ask if you're pregnant because it's irrelevant to the success in the job. So everything used in the hiring process has to be relevant to the job. It's pretty basic hiring process, but it applies to online assessments just like it does to in-person interviews. Now the solution is the ProfileXT uses performance models that are based upon existing top performers, and this builds in validity. Let me give you a couple best practices and then we'll be done. First of all, if you're thinking about using an online assessment, make sure that it's a mature product that's been around for a while. Make sure there's large validation study sizes so that you can have assurance that you've got accuracy in the results. Make sure that the user interface that will be interfacing with the test takers is easy to use and understand. Make sure that you're buying the product from somebody who's an expert in the area. And finally, make sure that you got good documentation and training. And training is one of the most overlooked things in this subject area, because we sometimes just throw these things up online and expect people to know how to read the results. And even with the best reporting system, which I believe that ProfileXT's got the best, but even with a system like that, we have to make sure that people understand what they're reading. Now let me wrap up with the EEOC Guidelines, and these are taken right from their documents. They say, first of all, use assessment tools in a purposeful manner. Understand their place in the process. Use the whole person approach to assessment. Don't rely too much on any one factor to make decisions. Remember, I said that an online assessment should never be more than 25 to 33% of the decision process. Do not expect any test or procedure to measure a personal trait or ability with perfect accuracy for every single person. It just can't happen. Don't expect any test to be completely accurate in predicting performance. No matter how good the product that you're going to be buying, it's not going to hit 100%. You will never reduce turnover to zero using assessments. You can improve it dramatically, but you can't get it to zero. Use only assessment instruments that are unbiased and fair to all groups. They also say use only reliable assessment instruments and procedures. Use only assessment procedures and instruments that have been demonstrated to be valid for the specific purpose to which they are going to be used. Use assessment tools that are appropriate for the target population. So that's it for a quick overview of validity on online assessments. Have any questions, just give me a call, drop an email, visit the website. Love to talk to you. All consulting is free, and I look forward to working with you in the near future.